president of the Nassau County Village Officials Association. Next to him from a village in Suffolk County, Paul Pontieri is the mayor of the village of Patchogue. He also is on our board, and I believe, Paul, you are the president of the Suffolk County Village Officials Association. I do want to use this as an opportunity to recognize the current president of the Suffolk County Village Officials Association, Ralph Scardino from Babylon is here. Ralph, thank you for being here. As we work our way across the table, or the front here, Tim Creamer is Executive Director of New York State School Boards Association. His president from my hometown school district, Lynn Lenhart, is the president of the School Boards Association and a member of the Bethlehem Central School Board, Capital Region BOCES, and Tech Valley High School Board of Education. Next to Lynn, as we heard from earlier, Dwayne Gregory, the presiding officer from the Suffolk County Legislature. We're glad he stayed with us today. And last but certainly not least, the executive director of the New York State Association of Counties, Steve Aquario. We have 4 microphones, 8 people. This will be a little test in sharing services here. And I really would like to, I have some questions, backup questions, and I'm going to ask one question while you all think about a question you may have, an observation of something you heard today that you'd like to hear the reaction of one or more of the panelists. But just open it up. Tim Creamer at School Boards Association, he really is the father of the mix, not the name the mix, that Steve Aquario came up with that, but Tim and his association had already planned a municipal or a school shared services meeting summit in Syracuse, and then allowed us to piggyback onto it, and that evolved into the mix. But Tim, if you could just take a minute, since I didn't do a lot of it this morning, just talk a little bit about the genesis of the mix and why you think, what the importance is of it going forward.
Thank you, Peter. I think the genesis all came about because of the freeze legislation that you all are very familiar with. It is something that we immediately said, we're going to have an awful lot of pressure put on us to cut costs, to figure out ways in which we can reduce taxes, reduce our levies, without reducing services. And so we looked at a number of things that we had, other organizations, obviously, that were going to be affected by this freeze. And naturally, we came to the conclusion that the Association of Towns, Association of Counties, and the Conference of Mayors were our natural partners here. It was Steve who also came to that kind of conclusion at the same time and suggested that we get together. And as we started talking about this, we realized we could talk all we want internally, but we need to take the show on the road and look for opportunities to bring elected officials from our 4 organizations together to begin talking about how we could collaborate and share services. What we've learned, I think, very quickly is that there's so much of this that has already been going on, but it's been oftentimes done with a handshake, very informally, and as Mildred Warner pointed out earlier, the unintended consequences of this legislation are remarkable, where we might even have people who will say, we'll hold off on entering into a collaboration until we have the guidelines from DOB that would give us how we're going to get credit for this. We may even stop doing something that we have been doing and reinitiate it at a later time when we need to get the proper credit. So this has been an interesting conversation, and long overdue, and I really have appreciated the opportunity to work with these 3 other organizations. They've been terrific.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, anybody in the audience who, even our speakers from earlier today, have any pointed questions for our panelists? We have one panelist who actually has gone through the nitty-gritty of sharing a service, actually shedding a service to another entity that was providing the same service. That's Ralph Kreisman, the mayor of Great Neck. I'd like him, if he could, to talk a little, because it's a very practical example of what he did, why it was deemed the right thing to do, what he may have learned from the challenges he faced doing it.
The conclusion is the law of unintended consequences. Before there was a tax capital back in 2007, the DEC decided that our sewer plant, I have a sewer plant that was built, it was a WPA project built in the 30s, services 2/3 of my village. We had to remove nitrogen, something it was not capable of doing. There, by coincidence, is a sewer plant less than 100 yards away that services the other part of my village and some other villages. And after a long process and a lot of study, we made the decision to upgrade one plant, decommission the other. It's going to save our residents $800,000 a year. It's the right thing to do. We investigated it. We signed a sophisticated agreement dealing with all the issues that we could think of. In December of '08, they put it on the shelf, thinking it would never happen. And 5 years later, almost to the day, one day off, the systems were combined. And then when you shed a service, because this was a consolidation, under the tax cap law, which came into effect, of course, after that, the Office of the State Controller is supposed to recalculate your tax levy for purposes of determining the cap. And thank God this happened last year, or my last tax year as opposed to next year. Because they recalculated it, came up with a number, I won't even relate it, and we went back to them 4 times, explaining why that was not an appropriate number. After the 4th time, they said, look, this is the way the law works. We have discussed this with the governor's office, and this is your new tax cap. Just think about this comment. If I didn't increase taxes by $1 for this next coming year, my village would have exceeded the tax cap by 8%. I'll stop there.
And is there hope in resolving that
Yes.
that decision?
Yes, we hope to introduce legislation next year with the help of a number of other people, excuse me, to fix this problem, because the controller's office admits that it just didn't make sense, but was what they had to do. It became even more interesting in our case because part of our village was serviced by it, we kept a totally separate set of accounts for our sewer operations. So it was very easy to determine the cost. And when you looked at our budget, we had an A1 and an A2. If you just took off the A2, everything would have worked, but they did not agree with that number, and that's where we came out.
I mean, that's one of the things we discovered, and we actually pointed out during the tax freeze debate, was that the tax freeze, as you know, is linked to the tax cap, your compliance with the tax cap, yet there are provisions that are at odds with each other, as Mayor Kreitzman just alluded to, in trying to share services like the tax freeze wants you to. They were punished as it relates to the tax cap, which made it harder for them to comply with. So one of the things that we want to see come out of our mix collaboration is the development of amendments to law, including the tax cap law going forward, to address these kind of inconsistencies. Dwayne, we talked a little bit outside, and I made the comment that for those of us upstate, we see sort of New York City, Westchester, Nassau, Suffolk as one big, huge, densely populated area, when really, Suffolk County is to a large degree a rural county, which I would think creates challenges for a county trying to provide countywide shared services. But you did talk to me a little bit about some things you have been able to do. I thought it'd be good if you could share those.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Suffolk County, as you all know, is a tremendously large county as compared to Nassau County, where the town of Brookhaven is about the size of Nassau County. So, which presents a problem when you try to, particularly in the concept of consolidating services even within the county, you want to make sure that you have the resources that are accessible to people. But we have been successful in several ways, and I'll point them out. One is we open up our fueling stations for municipalities and schools and fire departments to use them. There's a cost savings there. Just recently, as a few weeks ago, we entered into an agreement with the town of Brookhaven for a single stream recycling program. That's a pilot program that the county can come into. Narcan training is something that's become it's gotten a lot of publicity. We started a pilot program, I say about 18 months ago, and it's expanded throughout all of our police department now. And now we're even providing training to parents and EMTs and school personnel. So we're working with them. Another initiative that was started from one of my colleagues in the legislature after the Newtown shooting was the SAVE program, which is to institute emergency hotline directly to our police departments if there should be an emergency situation like a shooting, God forbid. So we've worked in several ways with different jurisdictions and municipalities to collaborate and for savings, and of course, like many other municipalities, I worked in the town prior to coming to the county as a purchasing officer, and we utilize state contracts. It's been beneficial to us as well, and we have to continue to do that. A county of our size, we have over 300 buildings. There was a plan done a few years ago on how to consolidate those buildings, and I've done some limited research on this, and I'm very interested, and I'll just throw it out there. Like in DC, there's a model, and I forget the organization's name, and excuse me for that, but there's a program that they started where they consolidated a health center and a social services center, as well as educational after-school programs. And it's been very successful, and maybe that's something that we could explore in the future. They serve similar populations, and I think it's important that we kind of think outside the box and kind of put these things on the table, or at least evaluate them and see where we can go.
Well, that's a good segue to the next thing